Hey, Carrie, so welcome back. We want to talk today a little bit about the corn harvest, and I'm looking around the Missouri area, and it looks like corn has been harvested. And it also looks like through some of the drought monitors that we've seen, the upper Midwest and the Northwest, there was quite a bit of drought in areas like Iowa, maybe the Dakotas. If you're purchasing any of these grains that have just been harvested, what should you pay attention to?
That's a great question, Jordan. A lot of places that we consider point of purchase have guidelines that are set up. And those guidelines will cover the important things on grains, the first one being moisture. So when a commodity comes into an elevator, they're going to check that moisture content and see where they're at on that. Typically, there'll be some guidelines that each individual elevator will set or point of purchase on what moisture they want to accept. Another thing that they're going to look at for guidelines is something called BCFM. So broken kernels or foreign material. And so you want to give that a percent, and each place will be a little bit unique, but that's important to monitor. And then finally, especially in some of those areas that we know may be problematic, you want to look at your toxin concentration. So there's a lot of tests that can be run right at the point of purchase for, say, aflatoxin. And those types of numbers, you may want to say, gosh, I don't want to accept anything that's over 20 ppb, because that's a really important level here in the United States. But perhaps if you're buying for a specific reason, something that's going into dairies, maybe you want to have a little bit of cushion, and so you don't want to have anything more than, say, 15. So those are very individual decisions that have to be made at those points.
So, Carrie, I live right off of a railroad, and as I'm on the railroad, I see truck cars going by all the time. If you have whole corn in a rail car like that, what are maybe some sampling tips? Because it seems to me that would be difficult to sample.
Sampling is the most important thing when you're looking at toxins. Every vessel will have some type of a sampling diagram. It's very different to sample, say, a ship than it is to sample a rail car, a truck, or even a bin on farm. So those guidelines, sometimes a state will have guidelines that your state, like Texas, they have some very specific guidelines on how to probe, how much to take out of each probe. And then the USDA also has some guidelines on those. So sampling is something that you don't want to take lightly, and you want to make sure you follow very well. Also with sampling, if you're going to very conscientiously and very accurately gather that sample. So let's say you're going to sample a truck, and you're going to sample 10 pounds. It's important that you don't shortchange yourself on the toxin part of that and be very good about sampling 10 pounds, and then just take a handful of corn and grind that for your analysis for your toxins. Because as we've talked in some of our other Harvest Digest, there's only a few kernels that are actually contaminated. So maybe 1 in every 200. So for corn, whole corn, you probably want to grind 5 pounds and subsample it well before you take that for your analytical sample.
And we know that grind size will play a big part in that as well. If you are storing this at a facility, let's say it stores for months at a time, is there a risk in mycotoxins just with storage?
Absolutely. So you want your grain to be at 14% or lower. And the reason is that mold can increase rapidly. And if the mold increases, your toxin can increase. Here in Missouri, where we are, our days have been really nice. It was probably 85 the other day, and next week our low temperatures are going to be in the 40s. So what that does in some storage vessels is that moisture moves in and out, goes to the outside where it's warm, goes to the inside when it's cooler, and vice versa. So that moisture movement can also attract pockets of mold. So you want to make sure that your grain is really dried well, because moisture attracts mold, and mold creates moisture, and it's just a vicious cycle. So you don't want your toxins increasing during storage.
Wow, Carrie, well, that is some really great information. And if anybody out there has any questions on any type of sampling or maybe some storage issues, we'd be happy to answer those questions.
Absolutely. Grind size and analytical sample size as well. This is an interesting time of year at harvest.
Right. Until next time.